Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar about detecting terrorist financing. I'm glad to see here today familiar faces as well as the new ones. My name is Dominic, and I'm over terrorist financing. The session will last about 45 minutes or something like that. And we will start with an introduction to the terrorist financing, some theory, and the current challenges. Then we will look at how at Cogniware, we help investigators and institutions manage suspicious transaction and activity reports effectively. And of course, the most interesting one, we will finish with the live demonstration to see how it works in action. Again, my name is Dominic Regner, and I am a technical specialist in Cogniware. And together with me here is Martin Kovář, our product manager, who will present you the live demonstration in the second part of the call. In the end of today's webinar, we will have some time for the questions. We are not going to answer the questions during the call, so please let's use the Slido to ask questions during the webinar, and we will address them in the end of the session. Just a quick introduction for you who are not familiar with the Slido. You just load the QR code with your mobile phone. You can ask questions directly in the open page, and you can vote for the most interesting questions as well if you will like some question of somebody else. So I will just now give you a couple of seconds to load the QR code. And as well, in the chat here, there should be a link for the same Slido where you are able to ask the questions. Before we dive into terrorist financing, let me just briefly introduce Cogniware, who we are, and what is our mission. At Cogniware, we focus on solving crimes and the complex investigations using advanced technology, including AI. Our strength is helping investigators with finding relevant digital footprints in the huge amount of available data. And that means that we are not just a software provider. We build a solution tailored for investigative domain, and we support our customers with the consultancy, training, and the long-term partnership. The result then is a complex but easy to use investigation platform that can be used by every investigator regardless of their technical background. One of the topics we are helping to solve is today's topic, and it's how to combat the financing of the terrorism. That's just a brief introduction of our company, and then we can jump directly into what do we know about the TF, about the terrorism financing. And are you from the countries where there is a super low risk of a terrorist attacks? Sometimes a country might face only a very low risk of terrorist attacks from a specific group, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there is no terrorist financing risk over there. For example, that group might use the country's financial system to hide and move money abroad, and those funds could then be used to carry out the attack somewhere else. So even if a country doesn't see attacks on its own ground, it can still be part of the financing chain. So that's very important to understand. And now terrorist groups usually need two kinds of the funding. The first one is operational funds, and the second one is organizational funds. When we are talking about the operational funds, it's a money for the specific attack. We are talking about the weapons, vehicles, logistics of the terrorists, and so on. And the second part is organizational funds. And these are the money to keep the group running day-to-day business. It's about the training camps, the salary of the terrorists, some propaganda, or basic logistics. And understanding both types of the funding is the key point to be able to raise the red flags before the actual attack happened. When we look at the money laundering cycle, it usually starts after the crime has already occurred. Criminals need to clean their money, resources, and this typically involves three main stages. The first one is about the placement, then it's about the layering and integration. First, the money is placed into the financial system, for example, through banks, trade transactions, or even some kind of a cash smuggling. Next phase is layering. The funds are moved multiple times, sometimes across the borders, through the offshore accounts and virtual assets to hide the crime origin. Finally, in the integration stage, the funds are brought back to the legitimate economy, for instance, through the investment, businesses, or some high-value goods. So it's a clear cycle. It has the start and the end, and we are basically going in the loops. Terrorist financing works slightly differently. It's called a cycle, even though it's not closed cycle, more it's like a pipeline with the four main stages. The first one is about the raising funds. It can be from the sources even legitimate, like businesses. It can be some crowdfunding, donations, or self-funding. We will take a look at it later. Then it's about the storing funds. It can be in cash, bank accounts, gold, real estate, and so on. And the difference between the money laundering and this stage is that it can stay here as long as needed, even for years, because we are just waiting for the specific and saving the money for the specific attack to occur. Then it's about the moving funds. It can be again through banks, money serving businesses, some kind of informal hawala systems, virtual assets, or even physical travelers carrying cash across the borders. These two steps can change from the chronological point of view or can have a lot of steps and repeats. And the last part is about the use of the funds. For the terrorist activities, such as paying salaries, as I said on the previous slide. So money laundering is about hiding a source of the criminal activity. Terrorist financing is about to be sure that the funds are raised, moved, somewhere stored, and in the end of the day, used effectively for the current or future objectives. So how these guys, how they get the money? What are the typical resources? Yeah, the terrorist groups rely on a variety of funding sources. Some of them are clearly illicit, but the others can be legitimate. Some of them we are able to stop. Some of them, as the financial investigation unit, we are just not able to stop. And as the bank as well, we are not able to stop. There are two main groups, and the first one is about the external funding. The second one is kind of a self-funding. First of the external funding, we are talking about the crowdfunding and donations. Although crowdfunding is meant to support the legitimate businesses and causes, and it has become attractive for terrorists because of the global reach and how easy it is. Funds can be collected physically, on the streets, or digitally using fintech platforms and social media. Contributors often don't even know about the real target of the donations. For example, I gave some money for the charity I didn't know in the center of Prague last week. But just a guy approached me and asked, and he had the terminal for the credit card, and he was polite, so I agreed and gave him something. But to be honest, I don't know about it anything. When I look back, it could have been one of these NPOs quite easily, and I had no chance to know about it. And even the United Nations Security Committee has already raised the concern about this problem. So just a friendly reminder, please be sure to take a look what kind of a charity it is once you are donating. Another major source is extortion of the authorities under the terrorist controls. That's one part where we are not really able to do anything about it, but it's there. anyway, and that's like groups, for example, such ISIL in Syria, they collected taxes and also engaged in some kind of local looting and so on. So that's kind of the external sources. Then we are talking about the internal sources, and then it's a real activity of the members. Many groups have generated income through the drug trafficking, frauds, robbery, smuggling, and so on and so on. And this illustrates how terrorist financing often overlaps with the money laundering because the crime already happened and we need to somehow hide the money. And finally, funds can come from the legitimate sources. The terrorists may use their own salaries or family money, but large organizations also establish front companies or even legal businesses. These can hide transfers through the false trade documents, inflated invoices, and so on. In the recent years, terrorists have invested, for example, in hospitality, in restaurants, real estate, or even financial markets. So it's kind of a legitimate source of the money. And this make it challenging because this money appears okay. And it's quite hard to do the detection for the banks and the financial investigations. So what are the typical ways? What kind of the ways are the money going through? We kind of mentioned some of them earlier, but the large of the movement of money still happens through the financial investigation institutions. We are talking about the banks, about money serving businesses. And these are frequently misused by employing third party, which makes it difficult to identify. And we are talking about some kind of informal value transfer systems and so on, where there is not an official bank. Another common method is establishment of the complex corporate networks, shell companies, often some kind of spread across the multiple jurisdiction. And these are used to layer transaction and complicate the flow of the money. Then we are very often talking about the high value goods, gold, diamonds, paintings, and misuse of the real estate sector for investments that appears legitimate, but it's just like a storing of the funds, as I showed in the beginning of the presentation. And finally, it was mentioned NPOs, some kind of fake loan settlements and transactions through the high risk jurisdiction, and so on. And the last part is about who is typically involved. And the investigations show that a wide range of actors can be involved in the terrorist financing, either directly or indirectly, and almost every time we are talking about some mix, some combinations. The most obvious category are listed individuals and entities or bank accounts, those already identified on international or national sanction list. And these often appears in the suspicious transaction reports. We also see the links to political extremists or even corrupt officials. In some case, politically exposed persons are connected to the financial crime and terrorist financing using their influence or across to resources to support groups or parties with the extremist ideologies. And the next part is about the family members, and these are like typical players. Wives or siblings of listed individuals are establishing companies, creating offshore entities, or investing in real estate as a way to move and store a fund and kind of hide the connection to already listed individual. Another common pattern is use of money mules. Low income earners or migrant workers or even travelers are hired to open accounts or move small funds, small amounts below the reporting thresholds. And these small transactions, they may add up to a significant amount. Then we are talking about the corporate nominees. These are another tools. Individuals with a little business backgrounds, sometimes foreigners, are appointed as shareholders or managers of the companies, and this hides the real owners and the real purpose of the business. Finally, sometimes professionals, such as lawyers, accountants, can be misused. They sometimes know about it, or sometimes even don't even know about it, and they provide some legal coverage, some structure companies, and so on. The key point, back to the key point, is that the terrorist financing networks, they always basically involve a mix of insiders, outsiders, some kind of seemingly legitimate businesses, and so on. So we are talking about a complex situation, and it's quite hard to detect. Where we are now, so what is the current situation? If we look at the current state, we can see that a large number of suspicious STRs and SARs are generated. The following statistics I'm going to show you is based on the report from one of the financial investigation unit in UAE. In this case, we are talking roughly about 200 report, 100 international reports, 150 reports submitted to the competent authorities. So let's take a look at it. And this is it. Out of the data, we can see the trend. The chart shows how these reports are distributed, and it highlights the challenge I am talking about. The financial investigation units, such as FIU in UAE, are receiving a very high number of reports from the financial institutions. And this number is increasing each year, as we can see in the red color. But many of them are invalid, and the ratio between the valid and invalid gets worse and worse. We are happy that the number of the valid parts are not growing that significantly, but the challenge is the ratio. And here we are talking about the problems on both sides, on the side of the financial investigation units, as well as the banks and the financial institutions. For the financial investigation unit, this creates additional workload, since they need to lower number of invalid reports and get the more accurate ones. For the financial institutions, such as banks, it shows that there is a need for a better evaluation before submitting the STRs and SARs, because nowadays, using the standard anti-money laundering systems is just not enough, as we can see on this chart. In short, the graph underlines a current problem. Too many reports that do not lead to real cases, and this makes it harder to detect the truly relevant and high-risk activities hidden inside the data. So, what is the ideal solution? The ideal solution needs to address both sides of the challenge: the overload of the suspicious reports and the accuracy. So first, we need to automate as many as possible, as many repetitive tasks and decisions as possible. This saves valuable time and the resources for both financial institutions and also financial investigation units. The second, automation and advanced analytics helps increase the accuracy. Instead of investigators spending hours manually reviewing low-value reports, the system should highlight the most relevant ones. And the third, by combining automation with the better evaluation, we can significantly improve the quality of the results. So the key message is simple: reduce noise, save resources, which basically you don't have, and improve accuracy through the smart automation. And at Cogniware, we are trying to do as much as possible to fulfill the conditions of the ideal solution, which can be then used for both sides, for the financial investigation units as well as for the financial institution, as we discussed before. So what we do is that we are trying to combine the several layers of the analysis. The first layer is about the network patterns. Instead of looking at transaction in isolation, as AML systems does, we map the behaviors of individuals and their roles within the complex network, as we showed on the previous slide. This helps us to see the connections that are not visible in a single STR or SAR. So that's the first step. On top of that, we apply the automatic scoring based on the complex rules and behavioral targets. Each entity and transaction is evaluated against defined risk indicators. Then, based on that, we can sort incoming STRs and SARs effectively, so investigators get a list of the most urgent cases of the financial institution gets the ranking to see what to send and what not to send. And because the score is explained, investigators or internal teams of financial institutions know why the red flag was raised and what is inside the STR and SAR. We even are using the AI to provide a unique description of what happened and why the red flag was raised. Finally, this process is automated where possible, but it still allows for a detailed investigations of the high priority cases. This way, the routine work of the investigators or internal teams is reduced, but the human expertise is applied where it matters the most. So now, let's take a detailed look at each steps. First of all, we are talking about the pattern. So let's look at some typical customer characteristics that may raise a red flag. One scenario is when the account owner is directly listed on the terrorist list. This is an obvious and serious signal that requires immediate attention. But this is quite obvious. Let's take a look at, for example, the family relatives. This is another case, and the account owner's family member is listed. Even if the customer is not directly on the list, their close connection is reported as the risk person. Or, for example, it can be raised when a customer deals with the counterparty who was subject of the previous STR or SAR. These links are important because even indirect relationships can be used to move or hide funds. In addition to the customer characteristics, behavioral patterns are very important as well. One example is when a suspicious activity report is filled about the new account opened by a non-resident from the high-risk jurisdiction. This combination is a strong risk again. Another pattern is when a customer makes a financial transaction, for example, above 1,000 euros, with a credit card in the location listed as the conflict zone. Or the third one, let's say the most complex one, a third example is a bank account receiving the deposits from the multiple parties, followed by the transaction abroad into the listed jurisdiction. This is a typical layering and it gets quite complex. And we can go even further, but it will not be simple to explain. So this is just to show you how the patterns might look like. And by capturing these patterns, we in Cogniware help investigators spot behaviors. These behaviors, they go beyond the simple name matching and connect to the bigger picture. Based on these patterns, we are able to treat them in one place we are able to prioritize the STRs and SARs based on the results and hits on these patterns in combination with some kind of weights. And the score is explained as well. And we are able to use the AI to explain the score, as you will see right now in the demonstration. So let's now take a look at the most interesting part, which is the live presentation of how it works. So Martin, please, I will just stop sharing my screen and it's your turn.
Okay, thank you, Dominic, for a very nice background intro to this topic. Now, guys, I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of questions from you, so feel free to use the Slido link. It is in the comments somewhere there, and ask us anything that comes to your mind. We're more than happy to answer you. Now, yeah, so what you are about to see, are there any questions right now? I can see a lot of hands raising. We can answer you, but we prefer the Slido if you don't mind, because we are recording this, so you will have recording of that even afterwards. So please try to use the Slido. We're more than happy to answer you straight away. Now, what you are about to see now is a real-time demonstration of the SAR analytics solution, which is built on top of our in-house developed platform called Cogniware Argos. And maybe let me start by giving you a quick overview of what is happening behind the curtains before we dive into the actual demo. Now, SAR and STR data are automatically collected from various XML files or API endpoints. So this part is happening, in the background, and we are transforming the data into form of entities and links based on predefined yet configurable ontology or data model, if you prefer. So here is an example of like entities, bank accounts, location, people, their organization, and there are link types or links between those entities. Now we correlate all data into a central knowledge base using customizable entity resolution rules. And we are using a powerful graph technology and graph database called ArangoDB, which we increase with some extra layer of security to comply with advanced security policies. What that means that anything that is imported inside the system is driven by security policy. So you can say which users can see what data, what departments can see what data. You can control this and audit this access to the data on quite very large granular fashion. Now, STRs are organized into cases, and cases are not only virtual folders, but these are places to orchestrate human tasks and all related workflows underneath. So this is the core of the system. So I'll begin by showing you the main interface of case management now and the key features available there. Here is the full list of all cases, which you can filter and sort by various criteria. Let us focus on the SAR cases now. And as you can see here, you can sort by highest priority, lowest priority, due date, and so on. Now, what strikes you probably the most here is the score or priority level that the cases are sorted by. Now, this is calculated automatically by the engine by running various rules and pattern queries that Dominic briefly showed you. We have defined 85 rules for this demonstration, which is not triggered for all cases. Some of the rules are triggered independently. You can see each case has a different set of rules that are triggered. Right. So these rules are a bit more complicated than the traditional rules of transaction monitoring system because we are highly leveraging the computational power of the graph and more complex relationships. So these are not direct links or simple normalized rules, but it can be more complex. To give you an example, let's focus on, for example, this rule, funds sent from foreign NPO. Now, this is the visual editor where we define each rule characteristic It contains specific editor, so no need to code anything. Everything is configurable using UI. And in this case, this is an example of a non-profit organization located in a foreign high-risk country, which is sending money to some account to a person. This person is distributing these funds to another account, which is in different jurisdiction based on your watch lists again. So you can have like 85 or whatever number of these rules, and these are highly configurable. You assign weights to them, and by combined weights, you can see the total score calculated. Now, in this dashboard, we are presenting the explanation for the total score by listing the rules, but also we have this AI assistant summary option. So you can run this either ad hoc, or it can be configured via using our pipeline, so it will be triggered automatically when ingesting all of those data. And what AI assistant is doing, and by the way, we are using on-prem data, so there is nothing that runs outside of our infrastructure. Everything is highly secured in your like hardware. Now, this AI assistant summary can give you, again, a brief description based on your instructions, and this can be configured per user, not by per organization, but every user can define his own prompt to shape the summary better for him. It can list down all the actors involved in the STR data, and it can give you, for example, transaction flow, again, depending on your instruction set. The system automatically suggests you the immediate risk mitigations and compliance actions that can be done. And since this is a workflow engine, you can actually run other workflows, relevant workflows that might be connected to the case. So if you have such connections, you can request arrest of some key individuals. You can request the seizing of related assets, and so on and so on. So this is like the dashboard summary or overview of the case itself. Now, obviously, each STR is backed by certain data. So here you have the main people, the main organization, the main financial transactions marked in STR file, and the bank account tagged. Now, since we are investigation software, usually we try to cover not only connections by timelines and geospatial view as well, but we start with connection here. So this is a relationship view on top of all STR data in one nice visual that is basically created automatically for you based on the incoming STR data. And you can further work with those by opening them on interactive visual canvas, which allows you to go even beyond the STR data, because what we are providing is the central knowledge base, which you can populate with any data you wish. So you have a lot of STR reports, and the data are correlated into one place. So if there are any bank accounts mentioned in multiple STRs, they will be shown immediately. Now, I can show you, for example, this person, and you can interactively explore the details that are related to that. So if you have a passport, you can go even further. If you have bank account, there might be other bank transactions which are not reported in the STR, but you may have obtained them from the bank institutions itself. So you can continue. And if there are any transactions to other bank accounts, you can continue the exploration quite nicely. You can use different timelines and different filtering options, including some nice assistant features, like if there are any data that are linked to the same case, the system will automatically identify the link for yourself. So no need to manage it automatically. Okay. So this is the view for link analysis, typical dashboard for investigation. Now you can, of course, investigate it not only from the perspective of the STR itself, but from the perspective of the investigated subjects. So for example, in here, you can search for Pablo Lopez, and you can go into the detail of that person that has been part of our case. And here we have multiple ways of how to define the dashboards or reports for that person. And you can summarize all relevant information for yourself. So here are all bank accounts that are for this entity. Here are all suspicious transactions. You have sanction list and all other information at one place. From that entity, you can see on which watch list, on which cases, on which basically STRs the person is mentioned. And then we have the 3 dimensions. The first dimension is the connections view. So that means that not only you can display all the related information about bank accounts, but you can obviously visualize more advanced relationships, like show me the counterparties of that account. You can focus, for example, on family relatives. And if you have information from land registry, which frequently we have, this gives you opportunity to see what the family members are having, what kind of real estates are owning. Now, this is just one piece of the puzzle. Once you start correlating everything together with the rules, basically the engine tries to compute that automatically. So this is the connections view. Then we have a geospatial view. So if you have locations for example, bank withdrawals of that person, if you have addresses related to that person, if you have addresses of businesses that the person is sending transactions to, you can visualize this in a map. And you can, for example, in here, you can put on a map all the relevant locations that gives you full picture of the details. Sometimes you have this granularity, sometimes you focus only on the jurisdiction level geospatial. So again, depend on the actual investigation needs. But the geospatial view we have covered. Now, as for the activities, we can draw various types of events on the timeline. You can combine them at once. At this example, you can see all bank transactions timeline for that specific person, and you can see the counterparties in the timeline fashion. So this one goes like for deeper investigation outside of the STR data that provides you more context, and you can enrich your existing visualization. So this leads us back to the fact that you can actually like explore various transactions, connections, and locations. You can add them to the case itself and expand the data, describe the data, and produce the actionable outputs, which goes beyond only the reported entities. So here we are back in the cases. As you can see, this is sorted rules that triggered the investigation, but you can carry on the investigation. You can create like more, you can identify more connections. And this way you can confirm whether the actual STR is valid or not, and if there are any imminent actions that you should proceed with. There are many different functionalities within the platform. Now, the platform is quite generic, but we are providing the STR, SAR analytics assets with it. So it comes with some predefined set of rules. It comes with predefined data model, which we know obviously needs some tailoring to each of the clients itself, which we of course do. But this is ready-made solution. This is nothing that goes for development. So the implementation time is really quick, and the way how we have defined the system, we have APIs not only for imports of data, but you can actually get the data off the system. So we are trying to minimize the closeness of the system and the vendor log, so everything is connected. That means that you can actually complement your existing solutions that you have, and you can run the computation of the rules to maybe enhance the data sets that you have. So this is very briefly the quick overview. Now, if you're interested in this platform, we are more than happy to give you a deeper overview, because obviously there is a lot of functionality there, and this goes beyond the time we have now. But to conclude the demonstration, I think the key takeaway is that our motivation is to automate as many steps as possible. That means that we are automating the incoming data. So everything is running on background. So we are taking the XML files, we are parsing them, we are creating entities and links between them. We are correlating the same entities based on various rules and IDs to the same person, to the same organization, to the same bank account. And this allows us to create these network charts that like connect the dots. Now, on top of that, there is a huge network of interconnected entities, and we are trying to make those networks easier to understand by running a set of patterns on top of that and visualizing only those relevant data. So we are trying to take those important data related to that STR, we are visualizing them automatically. So this is created automatically for you by the system. No need to prepare this. And obviously, we are trying to sort these inputs based on various criteria. So we have a large number of rules that we are calculating continuously, and by assigning different weights, you can score the whole inputs by it. That means that you can prioritize your work and you can focus only on the important thing. No need to recreate the case on your own. And obviously, we are trying to provide you the exploration capabilities. So you don't stop with these graph views, but we give you the options to explore all related data from perspective of the individual entities. And we are doing it by employing more advanced technology and capabilities like shortcuts, which are predefined rules that expand you. For example, only the nonprofit organization that you are sending money to or you are receiving funds from and are from different country. So this saves you quite a lot of time in drill down and identification of the related data. So I think that is the essentials of the actual platform itself. Obviously, there is much more which we can focus on further. I think quite nice functionality is the dashboard itself for the objects. So if you want to explore the entities, you can predefine your own like rules and indicators to spot the crucial information much quicker than just browsing through the properties and trying to see the linked data manually. So Dominic, I think this leads back to you if you want to conclude.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and showing us how we are trying to be close to the ideal solution with the automation, sorting, and so on. And I will then I will take it over here with sharing the screen. And again, here is the Q. We are now in the conclusion of today's webinar, going to the Q&A. We have a couple of questions in the Slido, but here is still the QR code. So if you would like to add some, feel free to. Now we have the 5 questions and 10 minutes, which means that we might be able to cover all of them. And we also answered some of them already, but let's get back to it very briefly. The first one is, Martin, are we able to run the system on-prem?
Yes, I mentioned that already. A majority of our clients have on-prem solutions, so we are completely disconnected from the internet. The only exception is that if you want to combine your data with OSINT, or open source information flowing on the internet, in that case, we are providing like 2 instances of the system. One is connected to the system, and then we are air gapping or securely transferring the data to the central database, which is disconnected from the internet.
Great. There is kind of the follow-up questions related to, you showed a couple of AI models. So and it's running on premise. So what is the experience with the AI models? What do we use?
We are trying to be vendor agnostic. That means that we are not authors of any LLM or large language model, but we have like the orchestration layer that allows you to ingest or use any type of model. We are partnering with IBM on a lot of cases, so we are using Granite for some of the things. We are okay to use any other open weight models or commercial models by any chance. So we have experience by combining like tens of models for different tasks and different languages, because we know that for Arabic, we need to have a different set of models than for European languages. So it's a combination, and it varies.
Okay. And then it's about the security of the data, because very often we are talking about, the sensitive information. The STR and SAR is, of course, the sensitive information, even inside the financial investigation unit. So how we are able to how it's done?
We have actually multiple ways of how to secure data. We have either like we have security on data level, okay, on document levels. That means that you defined which user and which group can access what kind of object inside the system. Now you can configure this manually for each object, or you can run case-based security, which means that only members of the case can see the data that they should see. So we are following need to know and need to share like typical military and intelligence rules.
Okay. Then the question is, there are kind of two similar questions about the orchestration with the full scope investigation, as well as workflow capabilities used for cases, which means like how we are able, you understand the connection between the questions. So
Yeah, maybe I understand. So we're using case management and case lifecycle to create like virtual folders for each STR and SAR investigation. These are like wrappers. This means that we can like monitor the retention policies. We can assign proper people to the cases. You can drive the lifecycle. You can keep the case open, closed, and so on. At the same time, each case might include other workflows, and you can run type of workflow like request for information or request to access some data that are authorized by another person. That means that we distinguish between workflow and case itself, and you can run multiple workflows within the case. This leads us to a very controlled environment where we can keep track of the whole case history, and you can audit the actions happening on the case, which is kind of nice. And at the same time, it gives us the opportunity to, since we have the workflow platform underneath, you can run some automated tasks as well. So if you request some information from bank, we can automatically create and communicate this with bank institutions and so on.
okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, somebody asked about showing how it works. Yeah, now we are not going to jump back into the live demonstration. So if you are interested, just write us an email and we will gladly show you deeply how the workflows can be set up. So that's related to the answer to this question. And the last one, again, maybe partially already answered, is about the definition of the patterns. Do we have some kind of a knowledge or how we can adjust them during the project, or how to set up the weights and so on?
Well, we have some ideas about types of rules and the configuration, which we can provide, but obviously every project we do comes with the analytical phase, and there we confirm whether these configurations are valid or not. And most of the clients, they have their own ways of working, their own rules already, so we are trying to like redo them and maybe expand them with our own ideas. So we have something to start with, definitely. but it requires the validation of the client, since this is the core of the business, right? But the cool thing is that it's fully configurable, and there are no limits basically for it. And but we prefer to have like common set of rules for everybody within the organization, like not to distinguish, like for one user they will have his own set of rules and so on, because you need to have some standard and compliance across the organization.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And let's take a look at the last question, and that's what types of organization use our system? Yeah, and and I think I can answer this one. So our main focus is about the law enforcement agencies and the intelligence, as well as the financial investigation units and the typically the financial institutions. So these are, I would say, the most important users of our system, with the use cases related to the financial investigation, to the typical intelligence, where we are talking about the whole intelligence cycle and investigation. Then it can be even inside of the prison facilities. We have the customers for the prison facilities where they do the internal investigation as well. So if I would somehow summarize it, it's usable everywhere where you are doing the investigation, which is nowadays mainly in the financial investigation units, the police guys, prison guys, border crossing, crypto analytics, and so on. So these kind of users and the customers are currently using the Argos system. And I will just briefly check if there is any other question, and there is not, which means that this webinar is coming to its end. Thank you all for being with us today. It was hopefully a pleasure session. We are here to answer any further questions, and we are really willing to show you how the system is working and to have the discussions about how it might help you with the challenges you are now facing. In that case, please feel free to contact us via email or via LinkedIn. And thank you for being today with us, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to any further polls that would be interesting for you. Thank you, guys.
And we will, of course, share the recording with all of you where we have the email.